Joining the September 4th, 2018 Volta call. First item we have on the agenda today is a demo for BBSim, and they'll be given by Keita-san. And just a reminder, we do record the session, so keep that in mind when we're doing any discussion and or presentation. And with that, Keita-san, I will give you presentation rights so we can start the demo.
Okay, please give me a right to share my screen.
Okay, we can see your screen.
You can see my screen.
Yes. Thanks.
And you can read the text message that is appeared on my screen. Is it too small?
For me, it looks fine.
Okay, I will make a demonstration that shows how BBSim works. BBSim is the emulator for Volta and auto scalability test. This demonstration content is the same with what I did in the VOLTHA Meeting lab. And each BBSim emulates a single OLT device and multiple ONU devices that are connected to that OLT device. We can run BBSim process in the Volta VM via CLI like this. I will explain what these options mean. We can select the number of home pods with option I, and we can configure the number of ONUs that are connected to the OLT device emulated in BBSim. After running this BBSim process like this, let me provision and enable this BBSim via Volta CLI. The BBSim can emulate the control message sent from OLT device and ONU devices like this log shows. The emulated OLT receives enable indication from OpenOLT adapter, and BBSim send interface indication, send operation indication, and send the ONU discovery indications like this. As a result, we can find the new OLT device appears from the GUI view like this. You can find the new OLT device with 1 MNI port and 16 UNI ports that indicate the ONU devices. So this is all I can do. Make a demonstration here. I want to make a demonstration involved with AAA emulation by BBSim, but I found a bug in my source code, so I want to skip this kind of demonstration here. Thank you.
Hi, Julie, this is Kevin Knoll. I hate to interrupt, but somebody's eating an apple or something, and it's very distracting from the meeting here.
If anyone who is not talking can go on mute, that would be appreciated. Thanks, Kevin.
I think that's probably the VoIP noise coming from the Keita-san.
Really?
No, that's okay. Just remind people that so BBSim is focused on the control path of the simulation between the OLT and using the open OLT adapter. And the ONU side, is there ONU adapter also used for the BBSim?
Yes, that's right.
So the ONU adapter for BBSim, which adapter is being used for on the ONU side?
That is a good question. I'm now using the Broadcom ONU adapter. However, I have to, extend this. I have to extend to OpenOMCI Broadcom ONU adapter next.
Okay. So now you're showing you're using the Broadcom ONU. Okay, got it. And then on the GUI side, just because I saw your demo last time, and you used 2 pump ports plus, so each pump port has 16 ONTs. That's why the first one is first and second one you have totally 33 ports. Is that correct?
That was correct. However,
yeah.
in this demonstration, I only use one pump port.
Yeah, that's why it came out as 17. It's 1 plus 16. So basically, you have one NNI port plus the rest is the uni port.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so the ports that include the NNI port and the uni port.
Yes, that's right.
And then the friendly name. And you're saying you can enable the you can enable the OOT actually, the BBSim actually using the GUI?
GUI?
Or RESTCOM?
RESTCOM. I didn't try it, but I guess it is possible.
Okay. So that is good. Yeah, I think, and I believe the Keita-san has write some documentation already available on the wiki site, and some people has been making some comment on that. So I would strongly suggest people try it out. And any question from the community? So this is it's also the code is beyond 1.4 release. So I think that's in the master right now, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
However, I think I have to update the vendor ID that is used in BBSim, because as far as I know, the vendor ID of Broadcom ONU adapter was changed in the a few days ago.
Correct. Okay. So so how do you define which ONU? So it's part of your script, right? So when you run the script to bring up the BBSim, you didn't identify which ONU adapter. So everything is already in the script to bring it up, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So we have to set up and configure the name of Broadcom the ONU adapter that is used in this emulation.
Okay. Okay, Julie, back to you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Keita-san? All right, I'm not hearing any, so I will go ahead and take presentation right back. And Keita-san, thank you for the demonstration today.
Sorry.
And then Keita-san, you probably have to mute.
Sorry, could you repeat again? Julie, I cannot hear you completely.
Yeah, I was saying maybe you have to go on mute because your line, I think, come with, yeah. Yeah, clear.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next topic we have today, Gamza, I think you are on the bridge, is that correct?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, thank you. So we added one item for today, which is some discussion of Vault 732, and that relates to work Gamza's doing on 949 as well. So let me go ahead, and I have 732 up on the screen, Gamza, if you would like to discuss this.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear my voice, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now I want to make an announcement. I have changed studies application to implement 949. It is not a small change, so I think that it can take time to review. I made this application more generic, and now we can read subscriber and bandwidth profile information from different remote servers from different URLs separately. And I have tested studies using both local configuration and also remote URL. And also I used unit tests. At the same time, I create a MD file to explain my changes, how to test it, and how to add a new information to studies. So please check my review. I need your feedback. That's all.
Thank you, Gamze.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure if anyone's had a chance to take a look yet, since I know this comment was just brought in yesterday. So
Yes.
if we can take a minute, if anyone has any quick questions they'd like to bring up for Gamze. Otherwise, we'll just call this out on the minutes and request the review from the group. So Amit, David, I see both of you are on the reviewer list.
Hey, could you add Sean Missette to the review as well?
Sure. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Then next, let's take a look at the new JIRAs that have come in over the past week, and I believe that should be starting with 1194. And let me go to okay, so 1194 was for OpenOLT, get manufacturer, model, and versions from drivers. And so that one is in Sprint 7 and being worked by Nicholas for OpenOLT. The next item is OpenOLT, a logger for the drivers. And again, that one is in Sprint 7 being worked by Nick as well.
What do we mean a logger for the drivers?
Nick, are you on the bridge?
Yes. What was the question?
What it says OpenOLT logger for drivers.
Yeah, it's on the driver side of OpenOLT, just having log file and have different log levels, because for now it's just like standard out, just making something clean and recoverable.
This is what runs on the edge core itself.
Yeah, that's the core.
And just a thought around this, as we go to containerized adapters, it's not only important, I think, to log messages to a log, perhaps, but remember, as they're going to run in Docker containers, having them to go to console out provides the log through Docker logs as well.
This is running on the edge core box on the OLT. It's not
okay. Oh, okay. So this is on the box itself.
Right. Yeah. So the box itself, the ONL Linux instance currently does not have Docker running on it.
Right. Okay. I thought this was the part running the container.
It's not for the adapter, for the driver side. Really.
Do we see logging using storage, like a local log storage, or is this going across the wire to get logged centrally as well?
I mean, at this point right now, it's being logged in a way we can't see past the last 5 minutes. So anything would be an improvement over what we have.
Okay.
We can extend it out, wherever we need to, but initially at least gives us a handle on grabbing it, putting it someplace, rotating it, not filling up the disk on the edge core, things like that. And then from there we can say, oh, send it to syslog, send it to Elasticsearch, send it to your favorite logger of the day. Yeah. But at least initially get it started.
Yeah, the short term is log into file.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully.
Any other discussion for this item? Okay, the next one then is 1196. This one is actually complete This is a bug fix that went into Sprint 6 for cannot compile Envoy. I think there was some discussion on Volta Discuss related to this as well. So Ken, I don't know if you want to make a brief comment.
No, it's fixed.
Okay.
It's done.
All right, then we'll move on to the next 1197 OpenOLT quieter console logging, and this one looks like it was completed in Sprint 6 as well by Nick. And this was this removing logging for OMCI conversation?
Yeah,
sure.
It was
okay.
taking a lot of logs and was hiding things. So
okay.
And it was binary anyway, so you really couldn't see what it was meaning.
It's just like the short-term version of having a real log. It was just like 5 minutes.
Thank you. And then the next one, 1198. This one is closed. This was the merge of Volta BBSim repository into the Volta repository.
This is a topic which I submitted, so please close to this task.
Okay, it's already closed. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kate. And then 1199, this is OpenOLT resend flow on error. And again, this is in progress in Sprint 7. It looks like there is a review up in Garrett right now.
This is the server side of OLT resending the flow to the device if there's an error?
It's the driver side. But I mean, we've encountered errors and we tried to resend the flows on error. That doesn't seem to fix the problem, so I don't know if we're going to merge this. I'm still debating. Maybe need to modify it a little before merging it. So.
I guess I'm just trying to understand that. So this is the Volta side sending the flow to the hardware device and it fails, and then Volta sends it again?
Yes.
Do we know why it fails the first time? Is that resending and say, pardon? Broadcom error? Okay. Anytime I see a resend on error, I naturally think about it, is this a back off type of thing? Does it resend more than once?
It's not that the code I push is just try to resend it once. It's not a backup because we lost connectivity. It's really, we send the flow add command. It failed for some reason. Like
Undeterminate reason.
Undeterminate reason. And just try to do it again to see if it works. After testing it more, I'm not sure we gain a lot from this. So
well, are you ready to make that call, then abandon the change?
I may refactor the change. I don't know. Within a few days, I would either abandon it, change it significantly.
Okay. It seems to me like a resend is a non-determinate fix for a non-determinate bug.
But I guess it comes back to if we need something working within the next 30 days and we have a hard time getting something out of Broadcom, we might have to start looking at clever fixes.
Yeah, it's a short time workaround.
Okay.
Nick. I was a little uncomfortable about this fix. So for the same reasons as David is. So.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's not there yet.
Sure.
Yeah, there is a merge conflict. So I'm not going to fix the merge conflict until I get something that I consider is worthwhile.
But the net of this bug is if an ONT fails to receive the flow,
or the OLT,
via the OLT, you have to reboot the OLT to recover it.
Yeah.
Yes. This is like a 1 out of 6 times thing.
You're calling that a bug?
It's a different. Yeah. It's not. Before I understood the.
I know, but
this is something.
Our priority is medium.
No, this is.
Seems like it should be as high up as it goes.
We need the new ticket for the underlying problem, I guess.
So this happens 1 in 6 times. Is that what I heard?
It's not 1 in 6, but I mean, when we have a lot of ONUs, if you reboot them 6 times, basically, you're gonna have the problem.
Reboot the ONU.
You reboot the ONU.
So, I mean,
unplug the ONU.
Yeah. So
but to recover, you have to reset the ONU.
okay. You've got to kill Val. Val has to be killed.
It's a big problem.
Yeah. So you just blink all however many you had. Yeah.
I mean, I have an idea on how to work around this. I have to test this afternoon, and it will probably replace this.
Okay, a couple questions. Is Broadcom aware of this? Have they put this even on their radar?
No, I have to file the CSP today.
Yeah, we found this one. You saw Friday afternoon.
Friday, I think.
Okay.
And get a good idea about what it is now.
But I mean, this is something I know Shad and saw of in their testing they had seen in the last week or so, and we were trying to track down the scenario, and it got caught up in some of our other testing. We've since separated the two issues, and now it came back to this one, and it's like Broadcom reports back internal error, and at that point you can't repush the flow, you can't remove the flow, you can't do anything with it.
The problem, the flow is halfway there,
and you can't get rid of it.
It's not the half that you can remove.
Okay, I guess I understand a little bit. I mean, again, the solution kind of a non-deterministic retry to a non-deterministic bug scares me. If we're going to do retries, and it sounds like retries won't even work in the case that you described.
If you want to close this ticket, I'm fine with it. It's not. That's not going to fix the problem.
Close the ticket or abandon the chain?
And both, I guess.
Pick your favorite curve.
Well, you got to. I mean, we need to solve this.
No, we need to solve this. I mean, I think we need to open another ticket more descriptive about the problem.
Okay.
But this one was opened up more time when we knew there was something wrong. We just didn't have a whole lot of details around it. So this was a placeholder for the effort. Now we have better information, so a better placeholder can be created.
I would change.
You will clean up.
Yeah, I would clean up.
All right.
Okay, so this one, so I heard that you could possibly close this one and open a new one. Do you want to just modify the descriptions and everything for this placeholder one, or?
I think it's a big enough change that we might as well open a new one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's too prescriptive, I guess. Maybe we just need to be more descriptive about what the problem is. Either way, it's semantics. We can sort it out.
Okay. All right. And then the next item is 1200, support for Broadcom OpenOMCI ONU adapter. And so this one is for BBSim, I believe. And
yes, that's right.
And Keita-san, is this one you're going to be working on yourself?
Yes.
Then I'll go ahead and assign you here. Okay, I believe that's it for the new tickets. Let me just refresh the screen. All right, I don't see anything more come in. All right, then I think that takes us through the new issues. The next topic was taking a look at Sprint 7. We did a bit of this the other day. So we do have 3 weeks lined up for this. And so it takes us through mid-September, September 21st. And if I go look at the board currently, actually, let me go to the backlog. So I was looking at this, and based on the number of story points we have in, it looks like it's pretty full at this point. So we've got roughly 147 story points. That's, I think we did around that for Sprint 6. So I think it's a reasonable number. I'll ask people to pull in issues as they have availability. And then we, again, looked at most of the items that were in here, I think, on the previous call with some very preliminary planning. And then items that were open in Sprint 6 that did not complete got rolled over into Sprint 7 as well. So I'll go over to the active Sprint view. That may be the better view at this point. Okay, so I think probably on this, we don't have a lot of discussion we need to do today since the sprint just kicked off. Do you have any other items that people are aware of that need to be folded into Sprint 7, need to be prioritized above other items, for example? I know none came up on Thursday's discussion. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. We may end up having a short call today then, because I figure we won't have a lot for updates since people just started the work on Sprint 7 this week. Any other topics that need discussion from the group today?
Yeah, this is Girish. This is regarding resource manager, and Shad brought up a question on Volta discuss.
Yeah.
So is Shad on the call?
Yeah, hi Girish. Yeah.
So I mean, I just wanted to ask that I think what you were asking about is the device profile, right?
Yeah. So, so I'm just going to go over what I said on the email. Is the change that you made? It's fine, but what it means is that for anybody to go and support a new hardware, a new OLT, which requires maybe a few, which has a few constraints, like it has a different range of an alloc ID or gem port ID. They'll have to go and actually subclass, make some code changes, and so it's like as opposed to this being driven out of a config or something from a KV store. So what I thought our position on this resource profile and tech profile is that you know northbound pushes a config which is keyed on a technology adapter and perhaps a vendor, and northbound pushes this profile into Volta. Volta stores it in etcd, and then the adapters query it based on the technology, adapter type, vendor type maybe. So that you really don't have to go in and really make code changes whenever you want to support a new technology, hardware, or a vendor. And so that was the idea. But
let me question that a little bit. So are you indicating that you think that different hardwares will have different technology profiles? Is that what you were trying to say?
Different hardwares would have a different resource profile, and so, resource profile.
Okay.
And a resource profile would have things like, for example, right now we have a requirement to support two different hardwares with the OpenOLT adapter, and these two hardwares probably have slightly different things, different ranges for a gem port ID or an alloc ID or things like that.
But that's fine. I mean, you can pass in the range that you're interested in to the resource manager, right? I mean, the issue, I think, the resource manager is slightly different. Yeah,
the question is, how do you pass that in?
Right, but I think
I don't think the resource manager comes from the northbound, or unless I don't know what part of northbound you're talking about. This, I mean, northbound doesn't want to know anything about the difference between the hardwares. That needs to be down at a much lower level.
I'm talking northbound of Volta, so I'm not talking
northbound of Volta being something that just resides in SIBA. I mean, it's not going up to the OSS. It's not being managed by AT&T. I mean, that should be something that should be encapsulated inside the pod itself, and not have to be managed by AT&T. It should be part of a driver config that gets loaded somewhere inside. I mean, I don't see that that's getting managed. I don't know how far north of Volta you're talking about.
I'm talking northbound of Volta core here. I'm talking about an API at the northbound, which can be exercised from the Volta CLI, from which you can create a profile and you can you can set some attributes on the profile.
Yeah, I think, Shad, I think the resource manager constraints are slightly different from the technology profile approach, right? Because it may be that someone has an FPGA implementation of a Mac, right? That may have constraints other than start and end points for the alloc IDs and Gemport IDs. It may be that it requires certain allocations in certain blocks, right? It may require blocks of 4 or maybe some alignment to some boundary that is beyond setting a start and end point or something like that. I mean, there are some very specific requirements from FPGA based Macs that
Right.
probably wouldn't manifest itself as a bound. There may be some
So
very
Sean, let's not talk about FPGAs that we don't know of. I'm just talking about 2 different hardwares that have just 3 attributes that differ. Like Gemport ID, alloc ID, and tcont ID or something like that.
Yeah, and that's already accommodated, right, by passing in a start and end.
No. Actually, to support a hardware like that, I have to actually go and make code changes. I have to subclass something, and I have to set hard code values inside my subclass, and as opposed to this being, just a CLI. I'm just setting my min and my ranges for my this particular.
Who is performing that? That's what I don't understand. Who is setting those things?
So that can come from a configuration, So it can be just a file that some small app reads, the startup routine reads and drives the configuration. So I'm not talking about
no. Okay. Yeah, I'm okay. I think I'm getting it now. So I mean, this is part of the delivery of the driver. Is you have to provide this config file that can be read somewhere and passed in, so that we don't put it in code. I'm all for a data-driven approach that
exactly.
gets out of the business of code design. Just as long as we're not talking about. We think that operators are going to be managing this kind of stuff.
I'm talking about a config file. I'm talking about something driven from a config file, a JSON, an XML, or something, where I just drop in my XML or a JSON with my values, and the software is supposed to read it and configure itself, as opposed to going in and subclassing and making code changes.
Yeah. Just to follow Sean's example, I mean, this JSON file will be able to operate on the key values that we're currently aware of. And to Sean's point, if we have other values that need to be abstracted because different hardwares behave differently, we have to go write code that's going to recognize whenever I read this JSON file, there's another configuration parameter that I have to be aware of. So.
Yes.
If we're talking about right now and we're generalizing right now for the things we know about, we can make that format of that configuration file have what we need. To Sean's point, if you're going to have to do other things in the future, you're going to have to write code to be able to handle abstracting those other things and parameterizing those other things as well. Sean, is that kind of your point as well?
Yeah, but they may be beyond just parameterization. I mean, there may be logic that needs to be executed that's different for, say, let's say CIG OLT versus the edge core OLT. And so there may be logic that's different.
In that particular case, I guess you just have to subclass and make your own code.
I agree over there. If there's something that that kind of a logic that's really different between two different hardwares, yeah, you have to do that in code. But I think parameterizing certain standard values.
I get parameterized. I have a question. Who's reading? This is the Open OLT adapter that's reading these parameters?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat that?
Is this the Open OLT adapter that's reading in this parameter file?
It could be the OpenOLT adapter. I'm fine with that. What is being added to the OpenOLT adapter is a resource manager, a small sub module within the OpenOLT adapter. That right now is within it has hard coded these parameters. And what I think is this resource manager within the OpenOLT should actually be reading it from a configuration file or from the KV store or somewhere.
And what is this file indexed by? What are these values indexed by?
I think it should be, right now it doesn't exist, but it should be indexed by the technology type, the adapter type, and maybe the vendor, the hardware, some sort of identifier for the vendor or the hardware.
Okay, so this just kind of feeds my paranoia about the OpenOLT adapter becoming essentially a adapter framework, much like the adapter framework was meant to be.
So I agree. And the second point I have, David, over there is that I think the resource manager should be a common thing that is not OpenOLT specific, but it's.
Sure, I have to interrupt there. The Pond Resource Manager is a generic module outside of OpenOLT, and ASFOLT Resource Manager has subclassed that module. Pond Resource Manager is not specific to OpenOLT.
Okay, that's good then. Yeah. So David, so it's not. This is not an OpenOLT specific thing. I'm sorry. I was wrong over there.
But how exactly you can call up the, let's say you have one OLT using the the edge core come up, right? So you have one setting they call the OpenOLT adapter, and then now you have a CIG or Tibet, right? They're all calling the OpenOLT adapters, and then how do you know which resource manager to call to or to refer to?
Yeah, that's a configurable parameter. When Volta is coming up, you can pass some extra arguments as to say which resource manager you would want to use.
It's kind of like
someone on the Volta
needs to call the ONU, right?
Sorry?
You're starting to pass an adapter to this code to say, we're rebuilding the adapter layer. I think there needs to be a step back and some thought about how the OpenOLT and the adapter layer are going to fit together, particularly around 2.0, because we're starting to see us parameterize things into the OLT adapter.
Sorry, what I meant was when you, sorry, I had to interrupt there. So when you pre-provision the OpenOLT, you can pass in some extra arguments as to say which resource manager you would want to use.
But again, right? So how does the OpenOLT adapter, if the northbound doesn't come down, I mean, is that because of the hardware, or because of the something like that will trigger that? Because I think that cannot be defined on the northbound side. Although, what I'm saying, outside the Volta core, someone needs to tell the Volta core which resource manager to pick. So
yes, exactly. So you do that.
So Amit or Girish, I don't think I think there are concerns around here, and the goal is OpenOLT adapter need to be adaptive, for all as a common adapter. But now we definitely need additional references to about the hardware. Can someone actually have a flow? Flow diagram established how exactly you think this is work. So Girish, is that something you or Sean can put together?
Yeah, sure. I can do that this Thursday.
Julie, Thursday, do we have time to go?
We do. We do. Right now, we don't have any deep dives this week. We have some next Thursday, so this Thursday would work for that.
And to be honest, maybe I was sleeping sometime. The resource manager. What's the functionality of the resource manager? I think I don't have too much memory about it.
It's basically managing the TC layer attributes. So ALEC ID, XGEM port ID, and ONU ID if required, I guess. But
okay, so Julie, can you go back to that email about the ONU ID range, right? So from 1 to 127 or 1 to something like that, right? So is it common? Do we really is that depend on the hardware or something like that? So the ONT ID start and ONT ID end.
Yes. So I mean the ranges are defined in the standards, right? Now.
So I thought the standards were 256.
Well, the standards have a range of values, right? I mean,
right.
So
for
GPON, it's different from XPON, different from XGS-PON, right? So
okay.
So and GPON 2, right? So you know, if you want to have this resource, the idea was, you know, basically the resource manager would accept parameterization to say what the ranges for these particular attributes would be, right? So if I'm managing GPON versus XGS-PON versus NGPON2, I can specify what those ranges are allowed to be.
So I think Mike Geisler, I think that ONT ID actually can be passed from the northbound, right?
Well, that's different. Sorry.
There is an ONT ID that is passed from the northbound. I don't know if it affects Volta. It has to be tied in the provisioning model. I don't know that you. I'm not saying you have to use that OID, that ONT ID on the PON. You don't have to. If you do, then that's up to you. But I mean, there has to be able to be an ONT ID that's concretely nailed down to the provisioning model that's up in SIBA. I don't know if it has to come all the way down.
Right. So the subscriber record is the linkage between the management ONU ID and the physical layer, TC layer ONU ID. They don't have to be the same.
Okay. So what I'm just thinking, you know, if we at least right now I know 256 is a number. So if we just say it's always 1 to 256, can we just remove this parameter from this resource manager?
Well, that's just. I mean, the ranges are much larger than that potentially. I mean,
it is much larger.
It depends how much you want to manage and how big, you know, how many, you know, items that the resource manager has to be able to manage, right? I may have, you know, my range is like 64K for the GenPort IDs. I may say I only want to go to, you know.
But that's GenPort ID, right? But I thought the standard is, you know, the maximum number of ONU the PON can support is 256. So what I'm saying, if we can reduce the expose, how to say that, definition here, then you know, some of them we can just use the standard as a default, right? So okay, you can use the standard as default, but whatever. Okay, so Garish, can you put down the flow so we can see exactly where the resource manager will come in, and then where exactly to be determined which resource manager parameter will be referred to. So, and then we can go through that on Thursday. But I think we have a good discussion today. But I do, you know, for my personal preference, I do like to see the flow.
Sure.
Message exchange. Great.
I agree. So if there's there's the urgency to this, you know, your commit, we can just merge the commit for now, but with an understanding that, you know, that that we have to move to a more schema config driven approach.
Well, I think we need a story for that, right? Because the stories that we reviewed, like 948, don't have the requirement around some kind of profile for this.
Yeah. So what I'm saying,
why would there be?
I don't want to hold up if this commit is needed for some, you know, I mean.
But Shad, why would there be an urgency for this?
I don't know if there's a new hardware that you want to support something. I don't know what's the need behind it. I know that I have a requirement. I don't see. There's a company called Iskratel, and they have an very specific requirement right now. For the GPON box, they're using OpenOLT and they're using BAL. The GPON box is Broadcom based. And they have got it working with OpenOLT adapter and driver, but they had to make a few changes. And one of them was this ranges, because GPON has a different range. So that developer had asked me as, what do I do? Do I just if-def things over here? Do I pass in some arguments and parameters? And I told him to hold off because Girish is working on this, and that this was the right way to do it.
I see.
So with this commit, what he'll have to do is, subclass, create a subclass like how Girish has done for the ASF Volt, and then he can check in his code, which won't be as hacky as what he's trying to do right now with just kind of some if-defs over there.
Is he okay with the way that the resources are allocated, like an alloc ID and then a 1 through 8 gem-port IDs, or are there other requirements?
Well, I don't know. I just saw his code snippet as what he's doing. He sent it across to me, and it's basically like an if-def. He has a compile flag of GPON versus XGS-PON. And he just if-defs and sees am I GPON, and he uses a different ranges. So this is a step better than that. So he's doing it in the driver.
And
So
again, right, and then also the CIG is also implemented this. So I don't know, whether the CIG also encounters the issue here. So and then I think ATRAN, and we have other OLT available.
But let me
now.
get this straight. If there is a technology difference, like you're trying to use the same adapter to work across GPON and XGS-PON, and their ranges are different, I kind of get it. But if you're trying to use the same adapter to support 2 different XGS-PON boxes, for example, right? Even then, the ranges can be different. Even then, the starts and stops can be different.
It may be, or it may be just the numbers of I may need a consecutive number of gem ports, for instance, right? I mean, for an ONU, everything may be consecutive. Other ones may not be. They may be discontinuous. But some of those will need logic changes if they have specific requirements around that. From the standard perspective, we get these ranges, so we can allocate them however we want, right? There's no other restriction. For specific implementations, there may be other logical restrictions that are implicit with the resource manager. Normally, this is kind of hidden from the external management layer. I mean, this is just basically allocated by the OLT based on its needs, right? So it may be we need some code changes to the resource manager for specific OLTs. It may not be, depending on how it's implemented. I mean, the thing is, we had a story, we reviewed the story, right? And this is the implementation of that story.
Okay.
Now, if there are changes in requirements, then obviously we may need a new story, may need a new implementation. But this is the implementation that was done based on the story that was reviewed. So.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Are you advocating then merge as is and create a new story to modify?
Well, I'm saying that the current, if you're asking me, the current implementation is based off that 948 story. If we need another implementation, we need another story.
Yeah, exactly. So the story that I implemented didn't ask for resource profile. So technology profile is something different, where you have a profile that is coming via some out-of-band mechanism. But this story didn't demand that, so I had to implement a PON resource manager, and device-specific requirements have to subclass this generic resource manager and define their hardware-specific constants, which I don't think normally changes. But if now there is a different requirement to make Sorry?
No, okay, so I'm just trying to understand. So this is the story that's on the screen right now is the one you implemented, 948?
Yes.
And this story, if we scroll to the top, says created transmission convergence layer resource manager. I guess, again, I'm trying to understand, Sean, if you're trying to say, because we have this story, we have an implemented something this, let's merge this and then create another story to modify, or are you saying let's abandon this story and create a new one? What's the suggested way forward?
Okay, so the only contention point here is there should be resource profile per hardware type, and that's the I think that was not required as per this story that was reviewed. So if we need to maintain a resource profile, I think it needs a new story. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay, understood. The question then is, are you advocating the position that we merge as is because it fits the story, and then create a new story to add that other part, the resource pile for technology? Is that your suggestion?
Yes. Yes, that's my.
Girish, it's going to be a rework for unless somebody commits to taking on that work. I'm afraid that this will just stick. This will just because we'll get a couple of support for a couple of hardwares with this approach, and then we'll never implement that. So I'm just afraid of that. That instead of taking a hit right now and doing it the right way, we'll be stuck with this. And then what we'll have is the subclasses per hardware types, and it'll be a proliferation of them.
Well, I guess we've already taken a hit if we don't use the implementation, right? So we're going to take a hit.
I didn't follow that. What do you mean we've already taken a hit? If we
well, we've already had a story, reviewed the story, and it's been implemented, right? So obviously, if that's not the implementation we go with, there's going to be a hit, right? Because now someone has to implement that again.
Right. Okay. I guess what I'm thinking is the implementation with the profiles for the resource profiles still fits its story. It's just a change to the implementation, because even after we create resource profiles, just a different way to implement the same story, or a modification of the current implementation. So I'm not sure we need a new story, but I'm kind of the opinion that can we take the hit and modify the existing code to do this resource template, whatever we want to call it, and why doesn't it still fit under 948? Because it still provides the same story capability. I mean, this is why stories the story's not supposed to pick an implementation. The story is about what, as a blank, I can do this, right? So it's about what the capability, not about the implementation.
That's true, but we need the part of this story then that would be the equivalent of technology profile. I need to go and create some other profile, right, through the management interface. I need to store that somewhere. I need to be able to access that, and then I need to use the parameters to guide the resource manager. So one thing is that I guess the story is not complete. I mean, just like with technology profiles, we have the other part, the management part of it, right?
Right. So if I'm going to be pedantic, kind of about the agile method, right? A story is something that can be completed in a sprint or less, right? And that's a story. If it takes more than a sprint, you need an epic with multiple stories in it. So is the work to do this as a resource template something that's going to be complete in a sprint, or is it something that's going to be complete in multiple sprints?
well, given our history, I think multiple sprints would be probably the.
Okay, then to remain on the pedantic level, we now have an epic about this that needs multiple stories put in it.
Yeah, I'm not sure we've been that pedantic before, though.
No, we haven't. I guarantee we haven't.
So I mean, is that the consensus then, that we need to be able to manage some other profile that would drive this resource manager? I mean, it seems like a lot of effort, and maybe in the long run that's the best solution. But this resource manager, I think, as we move ahead with different FPGA implementations, if they come along, there may be there may be different requirements, maybe different business logic requirements for that a particular OLT that would need a different implementation of the resource manager.
Right.
I'm just holding that up as a, even if we do this, it may not help, is what I guess.
Well, and this is where I thought someone mentioned, does all of a sudden this resource manager or the implementation of the resource manager get passed in when I instantiate an open OLT? You start parameterizing that and say, I have an open OLT, it needs this resource manager and this other thing and this other thing and this other thing. And again, we're back at an adapter layer, essentially. Much like we pass in, which adapter goes to which hardware when I add an OLT.
Yeah, I don't think this resource manager should be subclassed or parameterized per adapter. We should have some kind of a shim, or we call it a resource manager, that adapters can, basically the adapters need to get certain values which are technology or this vendor specific, and they need to key that and get that information. It's the same for both technology profile and resource profile. The requirement is the same.
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, if the technology changes, the resources are going to change, right? The TC layers are going to be different. So, as opposed to LLID for EPON, it's different items we're managing depending on the technology.
Right, and yeah, so there's certain keys that we need to define, which is basically we need to define a schema. It could be protobuf.
We're essentially doing dependency injection into the OLT adapter, right?
That's right. And the resource manager and the technology profiles are basically these translations, or basically these are interfaces to get these dependencies. So I don't believe that they should be per adapter, or we subclassing per adapter. We need one implementation of these.
It's not actually subclassing per adapter. It's actually subclassing per device. That is
yeah, exactly. So this is
per device type actually.
Right. So my original thing is that we should not be subclassing this per adapter, per device type. This should be, it should not be code driven. It should be config driven, and the adapter should be common. The adapter logic should be, as much as possible, we should keep it common.
But typically these kind of resources are hidden inside the OLT. I mean, it's not something you configured at all, right? I mean, it's only when you raise this up to a level of interoperability where you have to worry about it.
But Sean, we are moving things out of the OLT into the adapter, and for example, the gemport alloc IDs, specifying them now. It's earlier it was a driver, the OpenOLT driver, that used to choose many of these values by itself. And I think recently Radisys did some of that work of moving this decision into the Volta, into the adapter. So now it's not the driver in the OLT that decides on which gemport ID to use, but it's the Volta adapter that
Right, but that adapter itself is specific to a OLT, I guess, unless you talk about the open OLT adapter where it has to account for the different implementations on the different OLTs, right? It has to be aware of the device.
Yes. Since we have migrated, we moved this decision making from the device to the adapter.
Well, it's more than that, right? Because before we had an edge core OLT adapter, right? So that knew about specific edge core implementations, right?
Right.
Now we're saying the open OLT adapter needs to be aware of the specific OLT that it's working on and has to change its behavior based on the specific OLT, right?
Correct. And we'd like to keep that.
So it's an adapter, right? It is. We're now subdividing the open OLT adapter into multiple adapters. Whether we're doing that by dependency injection or some other mechanism like subclassing, it really is that.
You're right. This is becoming a bit of a framework over here, because
right. And my point is, we already had one, and we're reinventing it in a different way, maybe better. I'm not arguing that, but now we've got an adapter on top of an adapter, and we've got to stop that. We've got to pull this back in.
I'm all for moving this as much as possible into the core. And we had David, we had some email exchanges on that. So yes, so there's a lot of logic that's happening in the adapters. If you pick up a ADTRAN adapter, which I think is very well written, and if you look at the OpenOLT adapter, which is still a work in progress, there's a lot of logic that is common to both of these. There's a lot of state management, ONU state information, OLT, PON interfaces, state information. I think all this stuff. I mean, we're just going to be duplicating this across adapters, and this, if we could in the 2.0 architecture pull this into the core, that'll be super.
And this is Julie. Just a time check. We're about 4 minutes over our allotted time right now, so we'll need to wrap up pretty quickly, and probably continue discussion on Volta Discuss and on Thursday's call as well.
I don't know. It was worthwhile having a session on this because this was seems like a fundamental, decision point.
Yep.
I think we can.
No, Julie, you had Thursday.
Right. So we have Thursday's call. Do we need something in addition to that or before that?
I think let's just do it on Thursday. You don't have any agenda right now on Thursday, right?
Correct. That's right.
Let's do it on Thursday and have Girish. I'm still thinking the flow chart, the flow diagram will be good.
And also, I guess I'd like to understand what's meant by moving the adapter into the Volta core. I mean, if that was what was stated.
I'm just looking from a very bottoms up approach. If you look at the code for the ADTRAN adapter and the OpenOLT adapter, these are two mature, kind of in the OLT adapters we have. Yes, there is northbound, the iAdapter interface for these adapters, but within the implementation of each of this interface, the meat inside that, it's common. There's a lot of commonality across these two OLT adapters. So there's both of them maintain state information of ONUs, state information of the PON interfaces, things like that, and if we put our heads together, I think we will and look into these details. I think we will see that there's a possibility of some of this being, instead of being duplicated, being some of it being moved into the core, and the very minimal that is really different between two different OLTs being in the adapters.
Okay, but we just went to a lot of trouble to make sure the core was kind of technology independent, right? I mean, are we moving that technology awareness back into the core again, or this is basically something else? It's just a state machine thing, or a device-related behavior?
Yeah, I guess it's about, do you want to make the core completely technology independent? Does the core do not know that there's a PON network underneath it? If you want to make it that technology agnostic, yeah, then I think we're not leaving ourselves any room over there. I mean, we've decided. If you want the
pretty
core
much technology independent, I mean, it may not be PON underneath it.
Yeah. So if you're going to go with that approach, right now it's kind of a bit of a muddle. The core knows a little bit about ONUs and things like that. There's a bit of this thing. But if you really want in the 2.0 architecture to keep it completely agnostic of the network that's running underneath it, like you want the core to manage a RAN network, for example, then of course, yeah, you'll have to do everything in the adapters. And maybe have libraries like a framework for the adapter so that there's a reuse across them.
And Saurav, I think, I mean, Saurav chat. Let's chat a little bit more, but because we are trying to include GFS, we are trying to do XRAN related stuff. So I think we want to stay on the principle, right? So that's the goal. So I think Julie would run over time like 8 minutes now. So, and I think we can use Volta discuss, and the Thursday call we can devote a lot of time on this one again.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. So with that, I'll go ahead and I'll stop the recording, and then we can continue discussion on Volta Discuss, and then we'll dedicate Thursday's meeting to this discussion as well. All right, thanks everyone.
Okay.